Let me introduce you to a new outlier, the QC, Laboratory Control Spike Outlier, often abbreviated LCS, which is common in environmental procedures. The QC LCS outlier is a recovery quality metric, and it works in a similar manner to matrix spike, except matrix spike is spiked in the actual sample matrix, whereas an LCS is spiked in a clean matrix. So the definition here: outlier metric is a measure of whether the recovery of laboratory control standards are within predetermined recovery limits. A couple of conventions that follow the matrix spike manner. First, the reported LCS recovery is in the matrix spike percent recovery column. So that's shared. Also, there are asymmetric limits that are provided for A and B, let's say soil and water. So the way that is controlled is on a sample basis. The value of the sample information, if it's set to LCS-A, it will use the A limits. If it's set to LCS-B, it will use the B limits, allowing you flexibility in setting those limits for soil samples and water samples, let's say. So the reason that the LCS outlier is in the QC sample type group is because the concentrations for each compound are set by a level. So with QC, you're going to assign a level, and that will inherit from your calibration curve the concentrations that are expected and then used to measure the recovery against. All right, let's walk through the QC LCS outlier demo as seen in batch at a glance. First, let me point out, here is the sample info with the QC sample types, which have been given the sample info which corrects it to the LCS-B or LCS-A limits. Also the level determining the expected concentrations for each compound. And here we see the recovery given to us and highlighted with the outlier. So here we are in batch at a glance, inspecting the QC LCS recovery limits, and you can see several of these have been triggered. The limits are tightened up to produce the outliers. So the highlighting of over the limit or under the limit is visible here in batch at a glance. And next, the setup for the QC LCS outlier in the quant method editor. And under the outliers, you'll see under the sample type QC LCS recovery, which allows me to set up the recovery for the LCS-A, the asymmetric limits minimum and maximum, and for LCS-B, the minimum and maximum recovery limits are also settable. So here I am in the quant method editor with the outlier setup tasks looking at the QC sample type LCS recovery, and here I can set the minimum and maximum asymmetric limits for LCS-A and then fill down, as well as the LCS-B recovery limits for, let's say, the water, and then I'm ready to apply and analyze and see those results in batch at a glance. So here it goes to apply the method, and then you'll see it analyze these samples. And I'll repeat here that the sample information needs to be set up appropriately to set the limits for that particular sample, and you'll see the outliers have been triggered and you're ready to review. Thanks for your attention.